The I Am RAPAPORT Stereo Podcast, coming live and direct from the Vroom Tomb. If you never listened to the I Am RAPAPORT Stereo Podcast, the Vroom Tomb is my car. One of my favorite things about doing this podcast is somehow or another, people that I have loved, I don't want to say idolized, because I don't think I've ever actually had one of my true idols, but people that I've admired, looked up to, followed, wind up on the podcast. I've put it out there. I've mentioned some names that we have plenty more people that we need to get. But today I'm getting ready to interview one of my favorite basketball players ever. Certainly somebody who's overlooked. Rod Strickland, the great, unique, one-of-a-kind, influential Rod Strickland, who was a New York City legend. The first time I started hearing about him when I was about 13 or 14 years old. This is like 83, 84, and then I'm pretty sure it was 85. Yeah, 85, the spring of 85. The first time I saw him play was in a game that used to be like the quintessential New York City All-Star game. It's called the Wheelchair Classic. Now it still goes on, but there's so many different games, and high school basketball is on ESPN and it's covered nationally and on television, and it's different. But this Wheelchair Classic basketball game in New York was sort of the best basketball players from the five boroughs, and probably, I don't know the details, but probably the five boroughs and maybe Long Island, and it was definitely New York City based. It was an all-star game, the Wheelchair Classic. So to make it in that game, to get invited to that game and then play in the game was a big fucking deal, I can imagine, for all the high school basketball players. Anybody who came out of New York City played in that game. So I got to see Rod Strickland in that game. I believe it was at Columbia University. And, he was probably 18. I must have been about 14 or 15. And, all those players, it was like a bunch of New York City players. They felt like grown men, because when you're 14, like 18-year-olds look like grown men. They just physically seem so much older than you. Now, 4-year difference as you get older and broken down, it doesn't mean as much. But anyway, so I saw him play in that game, and I remember distinctly he was at the free throw line, and there were girls on the sideline there, I remember this clearly, and I don't have a great memory. But these girls said, "We love you, Rod." And before he shot a free throw, he blew them a kiss, shot the free throw, and, of course, made the free throw, because you can't blow some chicks a kiss and then miss the free throw. And then Rod went on to have a great career at DePaul in Chicago, got drafted by the Knicks. The Knicks already had a point guard, Mark Jackson. He played there. It was controversy between who should start, should they play together, yada, 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 got traded. Went on to have a very, 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 very good NBA career, got jerked out of a couple of All-Star games. But the thing about his game, it was just like, he was like a player's player. Just so unique, the angles, the levels of difficulty at which he would make shots, his style, the effortlessness. He's one of them dudes who I know he played hard, but he just never looked like he was sweating or trying hard. It just came easy. And he's, been name dropped in, a handful of hip-hop songs. Raekwon said his name, make him jump like Rod Strickland. He's so New York, so quintessentially New York, from a time and place that doesn't exist in New York City basketball anymore. So I'm going to call him up. He coached John Callapari at Memphis and at Kentucky, and now he's coaching at head coaching. So we're going to talk to him about all that. And I'm just such a fan. And I've loved him as a player for so many years. And I remember seeing him around New York. He's so low key. So I'm be interested to see how he deals with me and my excitement and bugging out and fanning out and all that fly shit. So coming up next on the I Am RAPAPORT Stereo Podcast, we're getting a phone call from the great, influential, never been duplicated, but often times imitated Rod Strickland. Strictly Strick. The I Am RAPAPORT Stereo Podcast is sponsored by Casper Mattresses. Casper is an obsessively engineered mattress at a shockingly fair price. Time Magazine named Casper Mattress one of the best inventions of 2015. Free shipping and returns in the U.S. and Canada. You could try a Casper mattress for 100 nights, risk-free in your own home. If you don't love it, they'll pick it up and refund you everything. That's what you call a money-back true guarantee. Made in America. King-size mattress could cost you up to $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. If you want a really good mattress, king-size, only $950. Go to Casper.com, CASPER.com/Rapaport. Use the promo code Rapaport. Terms and conditions apply. You get $50 off an already fair-priced, great product. Casper Mattress.
Hello?
Rod Strickland, it's Michael Rapaport.
Yes, sir. What's happening?
Haha. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm good. How you, man?
I'm good, man. I used to run into you in the city, and I was always excited to see you. So I can't even tell you how much I appreciate you coming on the podcast, man. I've been such a
same here, man. Same here. Always had much love and respect for you, man.
I appreciate that, Rod. I appreciate that, man. How you doing, man? What's going on, man?
I'm out here in South Florida, coaching at the University of South Florida.
How you enjoying? You're head coaching now?
No. I'm assistant coach. I'm trying to become a head coach. I'm hoping that happens sooner than later. But, I've been doing this for probably about, 10 years now. I was in Memphis in Kentucky with Cal.
Yep.
And then I came over here with one of the assistants, kind of wanted to, a change of scenery.
Right.
So, we in a program now trying to turn it around. Struggled the last 2 years. Hopefully this year be somewhat better.
Yo, how did you wind up? First of all, when I first found out that you were coaching, because you're such a low-key dude. I mean, you were like your personality off the court and then like your style of play on the court to me were two contradictions. Because whenever I've met you and seen you speak, you're like soft-spoken, low-key. But then when I see you play, you had so much style and flair and that New York shit. And then when I found out you were coaching, I was like, Rod is so low-key. Not that you couldn't coach, but I was just like, this is like a low-key dude. How did you wind up connecting with Cal, and what made you want to start coaching in the first place?
Well, first of all, since I've been, in the league, I've always been a basketball guy. I don't think people really understand that. Like, I'm a basketball guy. The history, the players. I've always been about basketball. Always kind of studied it, and from young. But I knew at some point in time basketball was over, and I know I'm a basketball guy, so I wanted to stay in basketball. It didn't have to be a coach. It could have been, in the front office or scouting or whatever. But I knew I wanted to be involved in basketball. I got an opportunity from Cal. I knew Cal through the league. He actually tried to trade for me when he was in the Nets, and I actually. When he was at UMass, he had a player on his team. He had a point guard that, was going through some things, and Cal was trying to calm him down and everything, and he wanted me to have a conversation with him. So I had a conversation with him, kind of followed up with that. And so we kind of knew each other through that. And then once I decided, once I retired, I was looking for the next phase of my life. And actually one of Cal's players at the time, his old players at Memphis, I used to go up to Memphis and watch games. So I kind of, DeJuan Wagner and his friend Arthur Barclay,
right.
I followed DeJuan Wagner through high school. We all know DeJuan Wagner was a great high school player, played with the Cleveland Cavaliers, got hurt, and was out of basketball. But I kind of got attached to Arthur because he was the underdog.
Right.
So we kind of formed a relationship. And then after he left Memphis, he actually stayed at my house because he had an internship in D.C. So he stayed at my house and, with the family and everything. And so we created a rapport, and then Cal was checking up on him and knew he was with me. And then he had Milt Wagner left from Memphis to go to UTEP.
Right.
And so I got the call, and Cal gave me the opportunity to go down there and work with Memphis. And, that's the end of the story. And as far as personality-wise, you're right. I've always been kind of low-key guy. The only people who really, really got to know the other side of me is probably close friends. And actually, I've been coaching for about, 10 years now.
Right.
And that was kind of a transformation for me because you're exactly right. You know, I've always been a to myself guy, kind of low-key, kind of quiet. So I had to learn to kind of open up and kind of give myself more to these kids and come outside of myself.
Right.
And so it has been a process. And, you know, I'm probably like a lot more outgoing than I've ever been at this point in my life. But it's been a great experience. It's been a great transition, and I feel good about it.
Well, I'm glad you're doing it, and I'm glad you're happy doing it. And, I mean, you know, one of the things you said was underdog. And I got to tell you, I had the pleasure of directing this Tribe Called Quest documentary, and Phife Dawg, the late, great Phife Dawg, he would always talk about you. He mentioned you, I think, specifically in the movie because, I mean, whenever I would talk to him, somehow or another we would get on sports. But he always, when I asked him one time, what athlete would he say, you know, his rap persona is, and he said Rod Strickland for sure, because he said he's sort of like the underdog. Not that you weren't known, but like when people talk about the greats, sometimes you're forgotten, and then when your name comes up, it rings bells. So you should just know that. I mean, you have fans. I mean, you mean so much to so many fans, and I don't know what it is. I think it might be because of your low key personality that maybe sometimes you get forgotten about. But I mean, I told this to you once. I don't know if you remember, but I saw you play in the Wheelchair Classic. I had heard about you. Of course, this is in the 80s when there's no internet, there's no you know, it's just word of mouth. And I heard about this dude Strickland, Rod Strickland, and I saw you play in the Wheelchair Classic. And I don't know if you remember this moment, but you were at the free throw line, and these girls said, "We love you, Rod," and you blew him a kiss, and then made the free throw. And I was like, I love this guy. So I just thought that was one of the. It was like.
I don't remember that, but it could have happened.
I'm sure it happened a few times. You know, I didn't know this. I heard Mark Jackson mention this, and I was a little bit behind on this because he's been in the league, and it bugged me out, but it made perfect sense. Kyrie Irving is your godson. Talk about Kyrie and that relationship, and how you know his father and who his father is, and just seeing this kid emerge to be you know, something so special. And when I heard him say that you were his godfather, I was like, this shit makes perfect sense, because when you look at some of the style and the angles that Kyrie goes at, he has Rod Strickland in his game. So how did that wind up happen? Who is his father?
Well, the funny thing about it, and I keep telling people this because, you know, they do relate to kind of, you know, getting to the basket and the layups and all that. They can't relate to jumper because the jumpers, I wasn't even close to that, but his father, actually, we grew up, since second grade. We've been close friends. We grew up playing with the Gauchos, a youth program back in the day. We're from Mitchell houses where we grew up at. And, you know, a lot of style that Kyrie has, you can see the resemblance of how I played, but that's his father as well, and that's what people don't know.
Okay.
His father had those layups. You know, his father was more of a scorer than I was. But his father had that in his game. So if you watch his mannerism and everything, and you know his father, you can see some of that in him.
What's his father's name? Because
Dedrick. Well, it's Dedrick Irving, but we call him Dedrick.
Okay.
Or Ice.
Okay. And he could play growing up. He was official.
Yeah, he can play. He went to Boston University. The thing about Dedrick that was different from all of us, you know, we all were basketball guys. You know, we slept, ate basketball. But he was a book guy. You know, he was a bookworm. He was about school and he was about his books. So he actually wound up going to Boston University. And it's so funny because I'll tell you this story. I was going to DePaul University, and I went to DePaul because I wanted to be on TV. DePaul was on TV all the time, and I just wanted to be seen. And so he was talking about Boston University, but he also had an offer from Connecticut, which was in the Big East. Now, at that time, Connecticut was just coming. You know, they wasn't really known like that.
Yep.
I think, you know, they were kind of at the bottom of the Big East. But I wanted them to go to the Big East because I knew it was recognition and we'd be on TV, you know. And I tried to coax him to go to Connecticut. But he wound up going to Boston University, you know, made a great decision. You know, he had a great career there. I think he was the leading sport for a long time. I think somebody broke it maybe, you know, 5-10 years ago or something like that. I don't know. But someone broke his record. But he's up there. as one of the top scorers in Boston University. And if it was this time, these day and ages, he probably would have been a pro.
Wow.
You know, because back then, if you didn't go to one of the bigger schools, you know, you just weren't going to be seen, you know. There wasn't all this internet and people just, you know what I mean? So
he was at that level. So it's in the genetics because I mean this kid, I mean his ability and I mean he's such an exciting player, and his ability and the flashiness and I've ran into him a couple of times. I mean, talk about a low key personality. This dude doesn't even see, like, when you walk past, you could literally walk past him. You wouldn't think this guy's a ball player. The way he talks, the way he walks off the court, it's almost like some bookworm guy.
Yeah, and he's very smart, very intelligent, you know, communication major, you know, real bright kid, man. I think at the end of the day, after this basketball career, he's going to have, like, I think he's going to do something special after that. Like, he's a special type kid.
When did you start to see that he was like extremely talented? Like, when did you notice that he was separate from the pack?
Well, I'll say this one thing. Desert told me one time when we were in the gym and he was a little kid and he was dribbling the ball, and I was like, wow, one day he's gonna make you some money. But I didn't. You know, I was playing basketball, so I didn't see Kyrie a whole lot growing up.
Right.
So the first time that I recall someone bringing his attention to me was my brother. He was in 9th grade, and my brother said, man, Kyrie's a pro.
Wow.
You know, and my brother's a harsh critic.
Right.
So when he said that, I'm like, wow. And actually he came up to Memphis, visit Memphis, you know, and all that. But when I really saw him and really said, wow, I saw him at LeBron James camp. You know, I was recruiting. And I sat there and I watched him, and I was like, wow. And I watched him play, and he was on the team, but he was still kind of, like, you could see he had his spurts, and then he would give the ball up, and he had his spurts. And I remember me and Desmond spoke to him afterwards, and it was kind of like, no, you take control. You ain't got to share. You know, you're the PG. So those guys who want to get the ball, you tell them, I got you.
Right.
And you kind of make them, you satisfy them, but you control it. You know what I mean? But that's when I knew he was special. And then I saw him at Duke. And, you know, people used to come and compare him and say, dang, man, he play like you, da, da, da. And, you know, I had my shoulders up feeling good about it.
Right.
But once I really got to see him, especially once he got to the league, I'm like, I was embarrassed for people to say that.
Wow.
Because he's extra special. Like, I can't, like, it's just slow, it's not even close.
Yeah,
you know, the things he can do with that basketball, like, I mean, it's another level. And then he has the shot to go with it.
Yeah.
And, you know, that makes him a big-time problem.
Yeah. He's a major problem. All right, yo, I want to ask you about, you brought up the Gauchos. Talk about the culture of basketball in New York City, particularly the Gauchos' Riverside culture. Riverside Church and the Gauchos are probably the two of the biggest programs. There were some other programs. The Madison Square Boys Club had some ball players, and Paco Scurry and them dudes. But the most famous and prominent, and I think, you know, every year, every team of every age, the Gauchos in Riverside. And this is before AAU really got crazy. And, you know, now every Tom, Dick, and Harry has a team. And, you know, I think there's pros and cons to that. I have my personal opinions about that. But talk to me about, like, who was on your team with the Gauchos? Who were the New York City basketball at the time was so fucking competitive, and there's guys whose names we know, and I'm sure there's a list of guys who never made it that you played against, that were like, that you admired and that you respected, that were on your same crew. So just talk to me about, like, what it was like growing up in New York City, playing in that culture.
Well, I mean, you know, New York, first of all, New York City, back then, if you told somebody you from New York City, it was like you was in the mob or something. Like, I mean, there was just so much respect, you know, on all, you know, in every city. But, you know, New York was competitive, man. I tell people all the time, I was able to sustain and play in that league because of my background. Like, I played in New York, and I tell people all the time, like, when I played, I couldn't lose. And not just the game, but I couldn't lose the battle. You know what I mean? So every time I stepped on the court, I had to battle and compete. You know, otherwise it'd go around town that this guy, you know, outplayed me or whatever. So that kept my competitive edge each time for me. As far as Gauchos and Riverside, back then, those were the two teams. You know, like you said, you had other teams. We had the Sun Devils as well.
Right.
Who I played for a little bit. But it was the Gauchos on Riverside. Any tournament you was going to, for the most part, sprinkle in another team or two, but those would be the two teams going up against each other. And back then, I got to give credit to the Sun Devils as well. They were up in there too. But I first started playing in Mitchell houses with the Mitchell Bullets. A man named Dave McCollins one day came over to the gym, dropped in into the gym one day and put together a team of a bunch of guys from that housing project. And, we formed the Mitchell Bullets. And from there, I'll say a year or two later, he was telling us that we were going to go play for this team called the Gauchos. And so we were the first small team. The Gauchos had an older team. They had, I don't even know if you can remember all these names, but Mikey Edwards, who was in Patterson,
Yep.
He was a legend. P.I. Granlard, Darren Burnett. But they had a lot of guys that we looked up to. So we formed the Gauchos. We played in 10 and under league tournaments. We got our butts kicked for a while. But we played for a coach, and just to give a little difference now, we played for a coach who, from day one, taught us left hand, right hand, layups, how to play basketball, pivot work. We learned the game from the beginning. So if you was on the court and you went to land with your left hand and you was wide open and you missed it, that was encouraged.
Right.
You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, what are you doing? Make the layup. No, that was encouraged because that was the right play.
Okay.
So, we come from a little different class. But, the Gauchos were the first team that afforded me an opportunity to go out of the city. Our first trip was to San Diego to play basketball, which I never had that opportunity. Never saw outside of New York before then. And then it just grew. I wound up playing with Pearl Washington, Lloyd Daniels, Boo Harvey from Queens, who was my guy. But, it just afforded me the opportunity to showcase myself and prove what I was.
Man.
And, the Gauchos in Riverside drove the Gauchos. The Gauchos drove Riverside. And, both of us wanted to beat, each other's butt, and we battled all the time. But it wasn't just about them. There were other teams who challenged us, battled us, and, like I said, that was in New York.
Yo, so you were on the same team at some point with Lloyd and Pearl. You guys and Boo Harvey. You guys played on the same team at some point.
Well, I played with Boo Harvey and Lloyd Daniels.
Man.
In Las Vegas.
Man.
Not the year, but we won it all.
Man.
But we had probably 12 dudes on the team. That was like really, really good. And we wound up taking the whole thing in Las Vegas. So Lloyd was a younger guy, but Lloyd was a bad guy.
Right.
And it was almost funny because Lloyd was so good that, for us, because you know how it is, it's our time. So we're trying to shine. But Lloyd was shining. And we kind of had to hold up, like, wait a minute.
Was he really everything? Was he really everything that you like? Because the folklore around Lloyd Daniels, he was everything that it was cracked up to be.
He was the real deal. He was the real deal. I mean, if you think about it, just look at it like this. Lloyd Daniels wound up playing in the pros.
Right.
After all he's gone through.
Right.
Just look at the background. After all he's gone through. And he played pretty good for the moment.
Right.
And this was a wounded Lloyd Daniels. Right. You understand what I'm saying? This was a wounded Lloyd Daniels.
Right. That's crazy.
So if you would have got the real, the fresh, the invigorated, clear mind Lloyd Daniels with his skill level, he's been ridiculous.
And who was the most, like, for you going up against Riverside or just around the city? Like, who were the people that, like, you were like, I really need to dig in deep? Like, who were some of the other players like that were your rivals before you were at DePaul or even like when you were at college? Because I know you continued playing in the parks and all. Like, who were your rivals at point guard position growing up and before you made it to the pros?
Man, it's hard to point out because it was so. I mean, I feel like in New York City, every time you step on the floor, it was a problem.
Right.
Like, I can remember names like Terrence Brodnick, who you probably wouldn't know from my younger days, to Silk Owens and Spice, from Brooklyn.
Yep.
Boo Harvey, who I played against in high school, but I played most of my AU time with. I'm probably John Johnson, who went to. What's the private school? that I can't think
Don't
of the
even
name, but I mean,
Rob, we don't fact check at the I Am Rapaport Stereo podcast, so that's if you don't know who it is, it's all good.
Yeah. But I mean, there was so many guys, man. Even growing up, coming up, getting older, I can't even remember all the names right now. But I mean, to me, it's like every time you step on the court, it's a problem.
Hip Hop's premier website is podcasting on play.it.
Hey, it's Ellie Wilson from Rap Radar. And me and my partner, B. Miller, man, we're taking over the podcast world.
Rap Radar is talking music, the people, the business, the culture.
Check this out, it's DJ Khaled.
Khaled on Rap Radar.
This is a special time in my life. I'm making incredible music. I'm on tour with Beyonce. I'm ripping it down in the stadiums. It's a connection.
Rap Radar.
This podcast has some serious cloth talk.
Check it out now at play.it/Rap Radar.
When you look back at your NBA career and all the teams and all the players, what was your favorite team to play on? Like, what was your favorite team as a pro that you like when you look back? Like, you really enjoyed it, and the guys and just the city. Like, what was your favorite experience?
Well, it's hard because I played, with a lot of teams, but I enjoyed Portland because we had a really good team with Clyde and Percy and those guys. I enjoyed C. Webb and Jawan and Washington when we had a pretty good run. I enjoyed and I had a struggle with Pat Riley. I went there later on in my career, and he didn't have a great year, but I enjoyed playing for Pat Riley and being in his presence.
Wow.
And seeing how he went about his business. And I always wish I would have played with Pat Riley. I wish I had caught him early in my career. I had such the utmost respect for him that, he probably, he would have got my full attention.
Wow. So you could, when you were playing with him, you could appreciate and like it's not a coincidence that he's so successful as a coach and now as a GM. It's real, huh?
It's real, and I always tell people he's a soldier, and he's cut and dry about what he's about, and he's about winning, and he'll do anything he has to put an organization on that team to win. But now, if you don't win, it's almost like, okay, you won, you the best, you lost, beat it, like move over, like like he's real cut and dry about it, and I've always expected that. Because when I first went to Miami, I got there late. They picked me up late after the preseason and all that. And we wound up, like we started out 0-12. And he worked us hard and he put the pressure on us and he would not let anybody in that locker room quit. And we wound up making a real push and almost made the playoff. But, we fell short at the end. But I never forget his intensity, whether winning, losing, and I remember the moments when we won, how he was, and then I remember when we lost, how he was.
Wow.
And he was two different people, but that's what he is, and I respect that.
That's dope. And when you were in the league, I know you played for so many seasons. Who were like the 2 or 3 people that you going against defending that you were like, okay, I gotta get some extra rest? Like who were some of the people that you had the most respect for, like fellow point guards guarding that you had to go against?
Well, I can just talk about 2 that I always was like, okay, I don't want to get embarrassed because they can score. And that was Nick Van Exel and my pool Raouf.
Oh, yes.
So I always was like, I had this thing, because I wasn't the best defensive player, so I always felt like I had to go at them before they went at me. But I always thought about them too. But, I had to go against Peyton, Stockton. So anytime you're going against those 2, let me not forget Tim Hardaway, who I can put in that embarrassing category.
He was a problem, too.
Yeah, he was a problem. So you had to always be aware of that. And, there's a lot of guys, but Kevin Johnson, he was one of those guys who just came straight at you all the time.
Man.
Nothing fancy, but always aggressive.
Yeah. Man, you were dealing with I mean, that's a hell of that's just the names right there. And I'm sure there's 10 more you can name. And my final question is when the Knicks, when you were there with Mark Jackson, do you wish they had somehow figured it out, or was it too much? Did it have to go down the way it went? Because you guys were both such great point guards. You were both young. You were both coming into your own. You were both New York City guys, beloved by New York City. Like, do you wish that they had kept you both there, or did it have to work out that way?
No, I wish they could have figured it out, and really we wanted them to. Like, if you can remember, the little times or any time they put me and him on the court together, he tried to really, like, make something happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
Trying to show that it could happen, but, you know, Rick Pitino wouldn't do that much. And for me, it was just hard. You know, me and Mark were both young.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we both, you know, we ego. We try to figure out who's who in this league and how good we are. So it was hard to have us, you know, what, a year or two apart and having to compete, because all we're thinking about is long term. I'm like, what, I'm going to stay here and play behind him forever?
Right.
And he's like, what, I got to stay here and be challenged by this dude forever?
Right.
You know, so it was really kind of hard on both of us. You know, I was on the coattail.
Right.
And you know, but Mark, one thing I always tell people, like, I have the utmost respect for Mark Jackson. You know, back then we battled, but we still have respect for each other. And when we left and separated, I think it probably even made it more respect.
Right.
But Mark was a leader. The difference between me and Mark at the time was Mark was more of a leader.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I was the guy. I was the hooper.
Right.
I just wanted to hoop. I didn't, you know, on the court, you know, I can run a team and, you know, but I want to hoop. All the other things outside, one thing, you know, I regret about the basketball thing in my career is that, you know, like, I grew up as just a hooper. Like, all this fame and, you know, this commercial and that thing, I never wanted to be part of any of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it kind of was always a struggle, because I just wanted to hoop. Now, I wanted people to know I could hoop. I loved the attention of being on TV and all that, but I didn't like all the other stuff, you know, just the intention in general. But Mark was more of a leader, and I think that's why the decision came. So I'm going to keep Mark over.
All right, well, that makes sense. Who do you think is going to come out on the top of this NBA Finals? I think it's going to be a war. What's your prediction? What do you think it's going to be?
I think, you know, Kyrie's going to get his, LeBron's going to get his, Steph and Thompson's going to get theirs. I think the other guys got to show up. You know, J.R. Smith, you know, he has to come through. You know, he's kind of struggled at times late in playoff series.
Right.
So he has to make shots. You know, Channing Frye has to make shots. Kevin Love has to make shots.
Right.
And then they got a guard. They got a guard that what Oklahoma City did.
Yeah.
That gave them the advantage for a minute. They guarded that 3-point line.
Right.
They didn't let, even the threes they made it tough.
Yeah.
And Golden State, really, if you watch them, they didn't really want to go take them 2-point shots.
Right.
Like, they even struggled with them at times.
Right.
So you got to guard that 3-point line and make them shoot some twos. Now, they're going to make some tough ones, but I think that's what they're going to have to do. And, you know, LeBron and Kyrie are going to have to carry them, but Kevin Love and J.R. Smith and Shannon Friday, they're going to have to make shots. All
right, Rod, listen, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time. I wish you so much luck down in Florida.
I appreciate it.
If you ever need somebody to come down there and get in their asses and give a pep talk, you let me know, because I'll talk shit to them. I'll let them know who's their assistant coach. You're one of the most beloved players in NBA history, truly, and definitely out of New York. You know, you're just we always have loved you. We always will continue to love you. If you need me to come down there, smack some of those kids around, just let me know, and hopefully
I might call you up for that.
Let me know. Let me know. They put their fucking phones down, put your Twitter down, and pay attention, or we're going to be doing wind sprints all afternoon, okay? And I'll take them out there. So
you know what it is.
I appreciate it, Rod, and I'll talk to you soon, man. And great luck great luck on everything you're doing. And you know, I'm just happy that you're happy, and I'm happy that you're still part of basketball. And I can't wait till you're a head coach anywhere.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it, man.
All right, Rod. I'll talk to you soon, my man.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it.
All right, this is the I Am Rapaport Stereo Podcast. I fucking love doing this shit so much. I love doing this shit so much. I love doing this show. I love doing the I Am Rapaport Stereo Podcast. That was Rod Strickland, and that was just a real pleasure.